It was a quiet Saturday morning in Maple Grove, the kind where the hum of lawnmowers blends with the chirping of birds. I was in the kitchen, stirring cream into my coffee, when a scream shattered the peace. My heart stopped. I dropped the mug, ceramic shards scattering across the tile, and bolted outside. There, at the bottom of our porch stairs, was my 10-year-old son, Lucas, sprawled on the ground, his wheelchair tipped over, one wheel snapped clean off. The custom ramp we'd installed just weeks ago was gone, nothing left but twisted bolts in the concrete. My neighbor, Sarah, ran over, her face pale. "Lisa, you won't believe this," she whispered. "Margaret had her handyman tear it out at dawn. She said it ruined the neighborhood's look." I caught it all on my security camera. Rage burned through me. That ramp was Lucas's lifeline, the only way he could get in and out of our home. Margaret, the HOA president, didn't care that it was federally protected under the ADA. She didn't care that Lucas had been in a wheelchair since a car accident at 6 left him unable to walk. All she cared about was her precious aesthetic. She didn't know who I was, Lisa Bennett, the state's regional disability rights officer. But she was about to find out. We'd moved to Maple Grove, a suburban enclave billed as inclusive, with wide sidewalks and gentle slopes perfect for Lucas. I thought it was a fresh start after years of navigating a world that wasn't built for my son. But from the moment we arrived, Margaret's welcome was cold. Her eyes slid past Lucas, lingering instead on our mailbox, which she suggested we repaint to match the community tone. I should have seen the red flags then. Days after the ramp went up, a pink violation slip appeared on our door. Unauthorized structure. I laughed at first. It was built by a licensed contractor, fully permitted, and I'd sent copies to the HOA. Thinking it was a mix-up, I responded politely, citing ADA Title II guidelines. But Margaret wasn't interested in facts. Another slip followed, this time about the ramp's beige color, which she claimed violated HOA rules, despite half the homes having beige trim. I wrote back, sharper this time, and mentioned my job. I wasn't threatening, just setting the record straight. Or so I thought. Then came the complaints. Anonymous neighbors, likely Margaret's allies, grumbled about construction noise, claimed the ramp was a safety hazard for kids, even said it would tank property values. It was a paper trail to justify what happened next. Without a meeting or warning, Margaret sent a handyman to rip out our ramp like it was trash. She thought we'd stay quiet, maybe move out. She was wrong. After ensuring Lucas was okay, just bruised, not broken, I called my office and pulled every emergency violation form I had. I wasn't going to scream or threaten. I'd use the law like a blade, sharp and precise. Sarah and other neighbors stopped by, sharing their own stories of Margaret's tyranny. Fines for overnight parking, demands to repaint doors over minor shade differences. No one had ever fought back. Until now. I filed an ADA complaint with the state, requested a review of Maple Grove's HOA bylaws, and looped in a legal advocacy group. I didn't confront Margaret. I wanted her to think she'd won. 2 days later, she strutted by, smirking, waving her phone like a trophy. I smiled back, knowing the Department of Housing and Urban Development had just assigned her case to one of my colleagues. We installed a temporary ramp that day, reinforced with steel, and ordered a new one in the same beige, engraved with "Access is a right." Margaret had torn down a ramp, but ripped open a wound in the community. People were talking, and her rain was starting to crack. The next morning, Lucas sketched superheroes at the kitchen counter, his bruises fading but his smile tense. He kept glancing at the window, afraid the new ramp would vanish too. That was what enraged me most, not the damage, but the message Margaret sent my son, that his place in the world was negotiable. Not on my watch. By noon, my assistant confirmed the ADA compliance team had scheduled an unannounced site visit. We kept it quiet. Let Margaret keep parading her ignorance. Then she slipped another violation slip in our mailbox, this time about the mulch around the ramp's base. I laughed at it, was absurd, but it showed her desperation. That evening, a neighbor, Emily, brought me a flyer she'd found on her trash bin. It urged residents to protect property values by removing non-uniform structures like ramps. It didn't name us, but the photo of our ramp said enough. Margaret was rallying her troops, but she misjudged the neighborhood. Emily, whose sister uses a wheelchair, was livid. Another neighbor, Tom, had faced similar HOA nonsense over a ramp for his aging father. Margaret hadn't just targeted us, alienated anyone who valued fairness. That night, I hosted a coffee gathering. What started small grew into a quiet rebellion. Neighbors shared stories, fines for visible stair lifts, bans on sensory-friendly wind chimes. Margaret's HOA wasn't about rules, it was about control, excluding anyone who didn't fit her vision of perfection. By the end, we had dozens of signatures on a petition demanding accessibility reforms. The next day, signs sprouted across yards. Access is a right, not a violation. Margaret's smugness vanished. She went door to door, arguing, but most residents shut her down. Her grip was slipping. The HOA inspection she called backfired spectacularly. The inspector, who'd approved our ramp, found violations at Margaret's own home: an unpermitted pergola and illegal solar lights. Suddenly, she was the one under scrutiny. At an emergency board meeting, a member named Daniel challenged her directly, asking why she'd acted alone. She stammered, citing aesthetics, but the room wasn't buying it. Her credibility was gone. Margaret didn't quit. She sent an anonymous letter claiming the ADA didn't apply to private property, threatening fines if we didn't remove the ramp. I handed it to our legal team. Then she padlocked the utility gate to block our contractor, smirking as she claimed it was HOA property. My contractor, Mike, called her out, and our cameras caught every word. Within hours, we filed an emergency injunction, barring her from interfering with our ramp. That night, a neighbor, Javier, slipped me a flash drive. He'd found footage of Margaret using HOA cameras to spy on our house, logging every move we made. It was obsessive, illegal, and the final nail in her coffin. I filed a complaint with the HOA Oversight Committee, presenting the footage, the letter, and the petition. Daniel revealed he'd verified the surveillance with Javier. One by one, board members turned on Margaret. In 20 minutes, she was suspended, her office locked, and the HOA frozen pending an audit. She stormed out, her face a mask of disbelief. She'd thought she was untouchable. She was wrong. The neighborhood changed overnight. Without Margaret's patrols, people opened up. Neighbors lingered to chat, asked about Lucas, offered help. The new board, led by Daniel, issued an apology to our family and paused all accessibility enforcement. They adopted a disability inclusion policy I helped draft, with teeth to protect residents. A local news crew interviewed Lucas, who said, "My wheels don't make me different. They just help me go." His words went viral, flooding our mailbox with letters from across the country, people inspired to fight for their own ramps. At the next HOA meeting, the turnout was massive. Residents shared stories of exclusion, from pool bans to noise complaints against autistic kids. Even Margaret's ally, Susan, apologized, admitting her grandson used a walker. The room clapped, not for drama, but for truth. The HOA later unveiled a plaque at our ramp's base. Lucas's path. Access is a right. Lucas traced the words, whispering, "This ramp's not just mine." Margaret faced the music. HUD found her guilty of Fair Housing Act violations, and a lawsuit loomed. The HOA banned her from future office, and she quietly sold her house and left. Her name became a cautionary tale, say, "Don't go full Margaret," and everyone laughed. Lucas was named Youth Advocate of the Year, his mural "No Barriers" gracing the community center. Other neighborhoods called, wanting our inclusion policy. Maple Grove wasn't just a place, Anna Maria, it was a movement. One evening, Lucas sketched a house with ramps on every side, labeled "Everyone Welcome." I asked if it was ours. He grinned. "No, it's the next one we fix." Margaret tried to break us, but she built something stronger. Lucas's ramp wasn't just a structure, it was a promise that no one would be left behind again. What do you think? Have you faced injustice or fought for fairness in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments, especially on how we handle conflict and stand up to bullying. Your perspective matters.